5 years have passed since the tragic plane crash that ended the career of one of the 70s most popular bands, Lynyrd Skynyrd. Following the path first explored by the Allman Brothers Band, Lynyrd Skynyrd was the model Southern rock band. Their trademark three-guitar attack was the perfect vehicle for Ronnie Van Zant's uniquely American stories of whiskey, women, and the road. During the next 2 hours, we'll celebrate the legacy of Skynyrd and the music of the survivors in this, the Lynyrd Skynyrd story. Like countless other bands, the story of Lynyrd Skynyrd begins in high school, where three friends, Ronnie Van Zant, Gary Rossington, and Alan Collins, started playing music together in Jacksonville, Florida. Jokingly, they named the band after their gym teacher, Lynyrd Skynyrd, who would hassle them about their long hair. Guitarist, Gary Rossington.
Lynyrd Skynyrd. He was my gym coach. We used to put Vaseline all over here and grease it straight back. But after gym, you know, being in gym, you have to take a shower, so he'd always catch us with the Vaseline out of here, and he could send us to the principal. So we started it as a joke, calling the band Lynyrd Skynyrd, but it caught on, so we just kept it.
Call me the breeze.
I'm the real Lynyrd Skynyrd. I was a gym coach in high school for Ronnie Van Zant and some of the other members of the band. And back in those days, we had a dress code. The dress code involved sideburns not coming below the ears, hair not touching the back of the collar, belts had to be worn, shirt tails had to be in, and socks had to be worn at all times. It was the duties of the coach to help enforce these rules, and apparently one or more of the people that I may have sent down were members of this band. Anyway, it has certainly been an unusual experience having a rock band named after you.
After winning a Battle of the Bands contest in Jacksonville, the band started playing gigs in small clubs and bars around the South. In Atlanta, rock veteran Al Kooper saw Skynyrd perform and was impressed enough to approach them about recording an album for his newly formed Sounds of the South record label. Al Kooper.
They'd never played Atlanta before, and this was the bar I was hanging out in. So I'd go in there every night, and they'd be playing every night, and it kind of grew on me. And so by the fourth night, I was up there playing with them, jamming with them. And by the end of the week, we had become really good friends. And I told them I was very interested in signing them and producing them.
Aside from the original trio of Van Zant, Rossington, and Collins, the lineup on that first album included Bob Burns on drums and Ed King on bass, who had been the guitarist with the Strawberry Alarm Clock.
I was on tour with the Alarm Clock back in 1970, and they were our warm-up band. Alan wore his guitar down to his knees, you know, and Ronnie pretty much hadn't changed from that time up to the last time I saw him. He always carried the mic stand around, you know. He was always pretty much the same. Always went on stage with no shoes, you know. I told him, you know, if you're ever looking for another guitar player or anything, you know, give me a call, because I really liked the way they played. We got along with them real good, you know. And eventually I wound up playing in some bar in North Carolina. And still to this day, I don't know how they found out where I was. But I got a call from, I guess Ronnie called me up. He said, how'd you like to join our band? I said, hey, great, sounds better than what I'm doing now. He said, you mind playing bass? I said, no. You know, because I played bass before. On just about every recording I ever did, I played bass and guitar. So he said, okay, we're coming up to get you. And I said, okay. And that was it.
Bassist Leon Wilkeson left the band shortly before they cut the first album, but then returned for the first tour. Ed King switched to guitar, and that established the Lynyrd Skynyrd trademark, a three-guitar band. A seventh member was added, keyboardist Billy Powell, who had been a Skynyrd road technician.
I worked for Skynyrd almost an entire year, and all of a sudden, I sat down and played my own version of Freebird. Ronnie Van Zant came up to me and said, you mean to tell me you've been playing piano like that, and you've been working for us for a year? And I said, well, yeah, you know, I've been classically trained, you know, most of my life. So, right then and there, I said, man, you know, we need a keyboard player. And there was a job.
Guitarist Ed King talked to us about those early sessions with Al Kooper, recording the first album.
When we went in to do our demo tapes for our first album, Al Kooper had us record 14 tunes. from start to finish, all live, you know. We just went in the studio and no overdubs, record everything straight out.
Right.
And when we were all done, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and boy, were we high. I mean, we were just really tired and high, and the last two tunes we did were Take Your Time and Mr. Banker.
Without a doubt, Ronnie Van Zant was the dominant force in Lynyrd Skynyrd. His energy influenced every move the band made, and his attitude for winning became the rule within the group. Leon Wilkeson.
He compared groups to like football teams or, you know, baseball teams. Like he said, one thing the way we are, I said, in order to play in this band, you got to have one attitude. He said, we shoot for one thing. That's a home run. We put it out of the park. You got to have that attitude with us.
Coming up, we'll hear some rare dialogue from Ronnie Van Zant and more music when the Lynyrd Skynyrd story continues from the source.
Hello there, this is Alan Collins, and you're listening to The Source.
Supporting The Who on their 1973 American tour, Lynyrd Skynyrd displayed an intensity and tightness in their playing that surprised fans who had never seen them in concert. By the time Second Helping was released in 1974, Skynyrd was one of rock's fastest-rising, hell-raising attractions. Ronnie Van Zant's anti-heroin lyrics in The Needle and the Spoon were taken to heart by the Skynyrd band members. Bassist Leon Wilkeson.
Ronnie had an avid way of getting a point across. And if I were ever in the temptation on messing with needles, I'd automatically have Ronnie's voice cueing in, "Angel of Darkness is upon you. Stuck a needle in your arm, you fool, you." So I can proudly admit I'm no pincushion.
We were practicing. It was the first day that with me on guitar, and we were kind of really hyped up for it. You know, what's this band going to sound like with 3 guitar players anyway? And so Gary was sitting there with his guitar, and he was playing a riff like this. I remember it was like. And I came up with a counter for it just like this. I mean, it hit me just like a ton of bricks. And the song was together in, I don't know, 30 minutes.
During the European tour in 1975, Skynyrd drummer Bob Burns left the group, and Artemis Pyle replaced him before the band recorded Nothing Fancy, their third and last album with producer Al Cooper. Originally, Artemis approached the Charlie Daniels Band for work, and Charlie mentioned that Lynyrd Skynyrd was looking for a drummer. Artemis.
Charlie turned me onto their number, and I called the number that he gave me and talked to a couple of people. Set up the audition in Atlanta, Georgia. So I auditioned for Leon and Van Zant and Ed King.
We started to work up Saturday Night Special. Was a song. It was a song that Ronnie and I had just written, and Artie and Leon and I worked it up from start to finish. And a couple days later, we went into the studio to put it down, just the 3 of us. And the other guys never heard Artie play before. They never even met the guy, right? And they showed up at the studio, and all the track was down and completely finished. And I said, "I'd like you to meet our new drummer, Artemis Pyle." And they said, "Let's hear it," you know, and they played the track, and they really liked it. So they got their guitars out and put down all the guitar parts and the vocals, and that was the Saturday Night Special that appears on Nothing Fancy.
By the time the band was ready to record songs for their 4th album, Ed King had left the group because he was tired of touring. Undaunted, but with only 2 guitars, the band recorded Give Me Back My Bullets with a new producer, Tom Dowd. Bassist Leon Wilkeson says the lyrics to the title song were misunderstood.
A lot of people took that the wrong way. You know, it's referring to, you know, the charts. When your record starts dropping, you know, getting to be such and such a number with a bullet. And we quit playing the song live when people started throwing real bullets. And just like the quarters, they hurt.
Playing live is where Skynyrd really excelled, and though they did play mostly original material, there were always a few cover versions thrown in, like Crossroads, Artemis Pyle.
We did that tune live a lot. Ronnie would come out and he'd say, "Boys and girls, you know," he says, "y'all have your favorites, and I got mine." And when he'd say that, I'd kick it off, you know, boom, bop, boom, bop.
guitarist Steve Gaines.
Oh, man, let me tell you about this gentleman that's playing with us tonight. It's a new member of Lynyrd Skynyrd. His name is Steve Gaines over here. He's from Oklahoma. He's old Okie. Watch out, I'm going to stick an Okie on you.
Artemis Pyle.
I think we saw that the 3-guitar format was real good. And we started auditioning all kinds of people. We auditioned Leslie West in New York. He came out and jammed with us on T for Texas one night. We auditioned all kinds of people. And finally, we brought in 3 singers, 3 girls. Cassie Gaines, we had Leslie Hawkins, and we had JoJo Billingsley, and they were our backup singers. And Cassie kept telling us, you know, she kept saying, yeah, I got a brother that plays guitar, you know, and you know how that goes. You go, oh, really? Great, you know. So, you know, we really didn't hook into what, but one night we were playing in Kansas, and Steve came out and jammed with us, and everybody's jaw, like, dropped to the stage, you know, oink. Steve Gaines was our man.
Coming up in hour 2, a tragic day in 1977. Some rare live music and a look at what the Skynyrd survivors are doing today. You know, the addition of Steve Gaines to the band not only restored the 3-guitar format, but his songwriting proved invaluable. Artemis Pyle believes that Gaines gave Skynyrd new life.
He brought Skynyrd, and especially Alan Collins, through a whole renaissance. He gave Alan new life, and he gave us new life. He gave the whole band new life. He gave Ronnie new life. Ronnie loved Steve very much and loved working with him and loved his songs, and Gaines had some great songs. I mean, Gaines was a special dude.
These are Steve Gaines' comments about being in Lynyrd Skynyrd, recorded shortly after he joined the band.
Since I've gotten the group, I've gotten to know everybody pretty well. I hope I've created some kind of momentum in the right direction on the music side of it. I think we're really progressing, and that's all I'm looking for. Everything's just been so great. It's kind of like a Disneyland tale for me, really.
The original cover of this album featured the band surrounded by flames. Following the plane crash, subsequent copies featured a cover photo of the band without the fire. Guitarist Alan Collins.
I thought that cover was great, with the fire or without. I don't know why it was changed. People took it the wrong way then, you know, after the crash. It did look sort of eerie, I guess, but it looked good before that.
On October 20th, 1977, a day after Lynyrd Skynyrd performed in Greenville, South Carolina, the band and their crew boarded a chartered Convair twin-engine airplane to fly to their next gig in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. En route near Gillsburg, Mississippi, the captain notified all on board that there wasn't enough fuel to complete the trip, and that he planned to set down in a field or onto an interstate highway. 200 yards short of a field, the plane crashed into a wooded area. Skynyrd drummer Artemis Pyle.
I was conscious. Everybody else was either knocked unconscious in the impact, or they, because of the pain, they blocked it out. We hit the ground at a 45-degree angle, spiraling in from 9,000 feet at 250 miles an hour. And it took us about 10 seconds, 10 full seconds, approximately, from point of impact when we went into the pine trees to when we stopped. So, you know, my first thought was to get out because I thought it was going to burst into flames. So I looked down between my feet, and I was looking directly at the ground. I slipped down out of the wreckage and went down under the plane, went down out of the bottom of the plane. And I saw the situation. The only thing that was going to help anybody there was doctors.
News of the tragedy spread quickly, but there was much confusion. Later that evening, a hospital spokesman for the Southwest Medical Center in McComb, Mississippi, verified the deceased and status of the surviving members.
Yes, right now, Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, Cassie Gaines, Dean Kilpatrick, and the pilot and co-pilot of the plane. A list of the others and their condition, as a bulletin was issued by the hospital, is Gary Rossington, critical, Leon Wilkinson, critical, Alan Collins, stable, Bill Powell, critical, and Artemis Powell don't have his condition.
Wilson Howard, one of the last people to talk to the group, was the promoter of what would become Lynyrd Skynyrd's last performance. This is the statement he issued 5 years ago.
I was backstage with Ronnie and Billy and all the guys night before last. They were playing in Greenville, and they were really, really excited about the new album that they had out, and, you know, they were telling me they thought it was one of the best they'd ever done. It's kind of a strange thing. The LP was called Street Survivors, and like on my backstage pass that I had, said Lynyrd Skynyrd, Tour of the Survivors, which I get cold chills when I think about it now.
Coming up, recovering from the crash. The aftermath of the crash was a period of mourning and long convalescence for the survivors. Very quickly, it became clear that without Ronnie Van Zant, there would be no more Lynyrd Skynyrd. In 1978, a collection of the band's first recordings in Muscle Shoals was released as Skynyrd's first and last. These songs predated the work with Al Cooper and feature on some tracks Ricky Medlock on drums. Medlock is currently the leader of Blackfoot and tells us how he became connected with Lynyrd Skynyrd.
In '71, we were managed by Hassels, and so I split the band, and I called up Alan Collins, and Alan Collins in turn called Ronnie Van Zant. Ronnie called me up and says, "You looking for a gig?" I says, "Yeah, I'm looking for a job." He says, "Hey, man," he says, "you still play drums?" And back then, I'd do anything to get a job. Right? "Oh, yeah, sure." 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, cutting the material, which is now called Lynyrd Skynyrd's first and last album.
Guitarist Ed King says that Ronnie Van Zant was the true spirit of Lynyrd Skynyrd.
He was Lynyrd Skynyrd, really. There's nobody else in that band, you know. I mean, we would supply Ronnie with a riff, but Ronnie was the band. That's why when he died, you know, it's kind of senseless to put it back together because he never developed that feel. You know, Rossington and Collins couldn't do it. Alan Collins won't be able to do it. It'll be, you know, it might be good. I'm not saying what he put together would be bad, but there's no sense resurrecting Lynyrd Skynyrd because Ronnie was Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Lynyrd Skynyrd has been history now for 5 years, yet their appeal and their influence remain. Leon Wilkeson summarizes Ronnie Van Zant's spirit that pervaded everything Lynyrd Skynyrd recorded and all the concerts they ever played.
What was exciting to him was, he was talking about the song Freebird, to see people get up, put their hands together for something that you wrote. He said, to me, that's what it's all about. That's what keeps me going back to it. And I feel that we can all honestly say we ought to share that attitude.
Ronnie Van Zant on Freebird.
When we first wrote it, it was just the lyrical part of the song that we used, and that didn't seem to go over too well, but when we added the guitar arrangement on the end of it, that seemed to really pick up, and like the song goes, like Freebird, you know, right at the end of the lyric is like, I want to fly high like a free bird, and then the guitar starts soaring. The lyric content of Freebird is based on the idea of, you know, everybody being free. To me, there's nothing freer than a bird, you know, just flying wherever he wants to go. And I don't know, that's what this country is all about, you know, being free, and I think everybody wants to be a free bird.
After 2 albums together, the Rossington Collins Band is now the Alan Collins Band. Gary Rossington and Dale Krantz are married and are temporarily out of the music business and living in the West. The Alan Collins Band is readying their first album with Billy Powell and Leon Wilkeson still in the group. Drummer Artemis Pyle heads up his own group, the Artemis Pyle Band, who've released 1 album this year and plan to record another soon with friends from the Marshall Tucker Band producing. Ed King is now an insurance man living in New Jersey and is still active musically with a gospel group. When the plane went down into that Mississippi swamp, Lynyrd Skynyrd's star was still rising. It is tragic, yet the music that they gave us lives on, inspiring other bands everywhere to have the courage in themselves and the determination to work hard to achieve the music that they feel. Lynyrd Skynyrd remains one of America's greatest contributions to rock. If you have any comments about this program, we'd like to hear from you. Please write us at The Source, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, New York, 10020, or in care of this station. I'm Sean McKay, and be listening for our next Source event.